I'm going to talk a little bit about becoming an effective multicultural counselor. Now, when we talk about culture, we're referring to the values and behaviors shared by a group of individuals. As a helper, it's your ethical obligation to develop sensitivity to cultural differences. Now, don't make the mistake of thinking that you only have to consider culture when you're working with a client who's of a different race, ethnicity, religion than you are. That's not the case. Even if you and the client are members of the same groups, you check all the same demographic boxes, there are still going to be cultural differences and differences in worldview that must be addressed. So remember that each person, regardless of their membership in various groups, each person has a particular worldview that must be considered. So your role is to assist clients in making decisions that are congruent with their worldview. So how do you acquire competencies in multicultural counseling? First, you have to be aware of the cultural origins of the values, biases, and attitudes and assumptions that you have about people from diverse groups, as well as about the counseling process. Now, we all like to think that we're unbiased, that we're non judgmental, but in reality, we all have certain biases. It's important that you're aware of these biased attitudes and you fully explore them. Otherwise, it can become an obstacle in caring for your client. And we have to challenge the idea that the values we hold are true for others. We tend to automatically assume that everyone holds certain values, and that's something you really have to train yourself to not do, to always allow the client to educate you about their particular worldview and the values they hold, and don't just assume that what you value and what you believe, other people also value and believe. So there are three dimensions to multicultural competency: beliefs and attitudes, knowledge, and skills. So effective multicultural counselors hold certain beliefs and have certain attitudes. First of all, you're aware of your own culture. And I encourage you, if you have grandparents or elders in your family or elders within your community, that you take the time to sit down and talk to them. Talk to them about, what the world was like when they were young. How were they parented? What values and lessons did their parents teach them? How did they raise their children? What values and attitudes and beliefs did they pass on? What traditions did they pass on to their children? So this can help you better understand some of your own values, understand where your beliefs and your values come from. You have to be aware of your positive and negative emotional reactions to members of other groups. Now, it's clear why you need to be aware of your negative emotional reactions, but also remember to try to be aware of your positive emotional reactions. So even positive assumptions are still biases. So it's important that you explore the positive as well as the negative emotional reactions to members of various groups. You seek to understand the world from the vantage point of your client, and you realize that traditional theories and techniques may not be appropriate for all clients or all problems. So you would then either seek out more appropriate theories or techniques or adapt the existing theories and techniques to better work with that particular client. You monitor your functioning through consultation with peers, supervision with somebody who is maybe more experienced in working with a certain group. You seek out training and education. So in the state of Texas, you have to do at least 3 hours yearly of continuing education in the area of multiculturalism. So you will be required to do at least those 3 hours, but you should also seek out training and education beyond that. Effective multicultural counselors also possess certain knowledge. So they know about their own culture and heritage. And they understand the dynamics of oppression, racism, discrimination, and stereotyping. Now, if you're not aware of these things, you run the risk of pathologizing the client, meaning that you see whatever issue that they're experiencing as residing within them. So if you don't understand the systems outside of the client or systems within which the client functions that could be influencing their behavior, you may automatically assume that the problem is with them. So for example, if you have an African American client who fears being mistreated by the police, is worried about police brutality, may feel some fear, some anger toward the police. If you don't understand the systems that influence that view, you may think that that person is paranoid, or there's something wrong with them. So you have to understand that things like oppression, racism, and discrimination really do have an influence on the client's behavior, and don't assume that it's just something that is wrong with them. You seek to understand the worldview of the clients, and you learn about the historical background, tradition, values, family structure, community, and resources of the client. So you have to do your homework to better understand the client. You also have to possess certain skills and know certain intervention strategies in order to be a competent multicultural helper. So first, you have to educate clients about the therapeutic process. And this is true really of any client. Most people don't understand the way therapy works. They don't know what to expect from counseling sessions. So you have to educate them about the process. A lot of people come in with a genuine belief that you're going to give them advice or you're going to tell them what to do. Also, something that's common for people who are unfamiliar with the process is for the client to think that they are just a passive recipient, that their only job is to come in and talk, and they may be surprised to learn that there's going to be some work on their part. They may have to do homework assignments. They might have to, participate in the session more actively than they expected. So every client needs education about the therapeutic process. You need to define goals that are consistent with the client's worldview and adapt your interventions to accommodate any cultural differences. Again, you seek out education, training, and consultation if you lack some skills in this area. And you should consider becoming involved with groups outside the office. So this may be something like attending cultural celebrations, maybe volunteering at a community center that is geared toward a certain cultural group. So you need to go outside the office to seek out experiences that help you better understand the client's culture. And you let the client teach you about relevant aspects of their culture. Now, this is not a substitute for doing your own homework, doing your own research. It's not the client's job to, educate you all about their culture. But everything that you learn about a particular culture is not going to be relevant or true for every member of that culture. So even though you've done your homework, you've researched this culture, you're going to have to learn from the client what aspects of what you found out are relevant for him or her. You have to understand which aspects of their culture they really embrace and are true of them, because that won't be the case for everyone, that everything that you've researched is relevant for them.